Good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for showing up and watching our speeches. This one is a bit more on the business side and a bit less on the technical. I think Davide will follow me. We work closely together with Supsi at the moment in the Lina Swiss project, so he will go a bit more into the technical mechanics or into the science behind it. So I'm Max. I'm a co-founder and the startup CEO of Resilient, and we're using smartwatches to help with burnout prevention and, of course, stress and sleep. As I'll go into it a bit, they are extremely correlated. So first of all, let's go a bit into what are the impacts of chronic stress and burnout. They're often used in surveys a bit interchangeably and in the word of mouth, so I'll do the same here. Technically, they're different. But what we know, and this is not chronic stress, it's actually a burnout statistic, the first one, 1 in 4 people are at risk of burning out, or employed people actually are at risk of burning out within a year. They already often show initial symptoms. And also we see rapid increases in burnout at the rate of pre-pandemic rate of 35% in 5 years growth. This is a current trend. For me, the most worrying statistics of all of those is actually the next one. Half the people who work, or just over half of the people, they work in autopilot mode, so-called presenteeism. They're mentally checked out. So they're doing it without thinking really about what they're doing anymore. Then the other thing, it's not really frequency, but it's duration. To get over a burnout takes a very long time. A rule of thumb is actually it takes as long to get out of it as it took you to develop it in the first place. And it's a very slow developing issue or disease, depending on who you ask. So burnout also is toxic. I don't know if you've experienced this. If you come to the office or to school or anything and someone is next to you and is, tense, stressed and everything, you go home in the evening, you don't really feel great about yourself either. So we actually absorb this. I assume if we ask a neuroscientist, he will tell you it has to do with neurons. I'm not the expert on that. But it's something we observed and we also saw from questioning people. Then what's also quite often the case is people with burnout, they're looking not on purpose, but they're creating unproductive conflict. So not the ones that they ask questions because they're already in autopilot, they don't care anymore, they just have issues to controlling their emotions, so they're looking a bit for conflict. Again, not on purpose, they're not bad people, it just sounds like it when I talk about them like that. Then the next issue we have with them is absenteeism, not showing up to work, or presenteeism, autopilot people. They actually just increase the workload for everyone else. This can create domino effects in organizations. And I'm talking about organizations because that's where our startup is focusing towards right now. Now, burnout also has quite severe health consequences. One of the ones where I was the most surprised is actually, I thought you can fully recover, and yes, we can. However, there is one incidence where we cannot, and that's if you have consecutive burnouts. And here we talk clinical burnouts. Those are people who are in therapy. They go back too soon into their daily habits, and they burn out within a short time again into the same stage. Usually it's within months, and these people can actually literally see drops in their IQ. The comorbidity list is extremely exhaustive, and we see that most people, or 3/4 of people, report physical symptoms as well as psychological symptoms. Physical symptoms can be just chronic pain, headaches, and so on. They can go much further down to heart disease. Psychological symptoms, for example, often depression, anxiety, and so on, and can also go further down the road. Of course, this comes at a very high cost. So Peter Schnell, he's at UC Berkeley. He's one of the US's more known occupational health researchers. He published a book before the pandemic called Unhealthy Work, and he said, stress is costing the US economy more than $1 trillion a year. About 1/3 is absorbed by companies. And this, if we go through the population and the monthly fee as how many workers they have, this comes to about $160 a month. Now in Switzerland, this number is even higher at almost 200 francs a month, not because we have more burnout cases, it's just attributed to higher salaries here. And we do see in Switzerland, this is an interesting statistics given to us. I don't recall which, it was an insurance company. It was either Svika or it was Promotion Santé, so it's not really, can't remember who told me that, to be honest, but it's about over 10% of all salaries are lost in presenteeism. But it's not just money companies lose, or overall we lose as a society. It's also know-how, because less than half the people who are leaving have a burnout leave or a chronic stress leave. They won't return to that job. So traditionally, burnout has been a very personal problem. We do see quite similar statistics. Two new important factors are we're good at stress assessment when it's acute stress. We are terrible at assessing when we're chronically stressed, because we just get habituated to it. We can't gauge this anymore at all. So that's one reason burnout is so dangerous, actually. Then another one is 83% of people are aware that their work burnout is actually harming their personal relationship. And I would say that the other 17 are just not aware, because, well, maybe this is true, it's just 83%. I would even argue it's all of them. If we go back to this toxicity problem from before, it's probably not a good idea to take your work stress home. I mean, of course, you can't do anything about it, but as you can see, it's quite insidious how it can spread. But from a personal disease, it's more and more becoming also a massive business problem. Of course, first driver was costs, but we see on top of it now that human resource managers are completely overwhelmed. May have to do with another two statistics that, well, over half the people do not return. That's lost know-how. And we see younger generations are highly likely, in compared to older generations, to quit. So 50% of millennials reported when they start to feel chronically stressed, they will leave. This also comes with a lot of regulatory pressure. Started with the WHO, and when they reclassified burnout from a medical disease illness into an occupational phenomenon, like basically just pointing the finger at companies, saying it's kind of your responsibility here. And now we see more and more upcoming European laws. Specifically, Europe is a bit stricter than the US, that they mandate especially larger companies, to support mental health for their employees. So since this has a bit to do with sleep, honestly not my expertise, but I looked it up a bit, and I saw stress and sleep have quite a lot of links. So the relationship is bidirectional. People who are not sleeping well, of course, they're more stressed, and vice versa. So there's also the issue of cortisol. Stress increases cortisol, and cortisol actually is disrupting sleep patterns. I wasn't aware of that fact before. I just learned that actually over the weekend. And then we see sleep deprivation, and this is an obvious one. We probably all experienced a bit. When we don't sleep for multiple days, the smallest stressors can throw us completely off our feeling. I mean, something little tiny can happen, and we overreact 5-6 times to our days when we feel well rested. Then back to sleep patterns or stages. REM sleep is apparently essential for emotional regulation. So, of course, if that's disrupted, our stress increases as well. Then both stress and sleep actually have similar effects on our immunity. One is just not repairing, not recovering, and the other one is just not helping with reparation and recovery. So that's actually already the next one. Stress and sleep. The purpose of sleep apparently is that we use it to recover from our daily stressors. Now, these can be physical or mental or emotional, and if we don't do that, it will hinder it. Yeah, of course, lack of sleep hinders cognitive function. So this means decision-making and problem-solving skills. I guess that's also part similar behavior after a while, as we see in presenteeism. It's basically, if we don't sleep for one night, we already feel like we have a little bit of a milk glass in front of our head. Imagine now people chronically with issues. Life must be quite difficult, actually. Then the last thing is sleep or chronic stress can actually cause sleep disorders. This I also didn't know. It's interesting to read about. Insomnia and sleep apnea can be caused by chronic stress. I have to look more into it, to be honest. I was surprised. So when it comes to wearables, and we're talking about today's available wearables, not the ones that are in development, we believe, as you can see, we'll see opportunities there. But today's limitations, the most obvious one is accuracy, and also how data is presented. Next one we see for for our use case is often, we first were actually a company more trying to go into the medical field. We used ECG devices to monitor stress from burnout patients, and then we switched into, with the WHO's changes, they opened the door for a large market for us. We switched into occupational health and prevention. And we did have issues with regulatory pathways. I mean, Apple is now certifying the Apple Watch with their ECG sensor, but that's only one sensor. But it's also questionable, personally, if I would be diagnosed, for example, with a heart disease, thank God not, I wouldn't rely on an Apple Watch or a Garmin or a Fitbit or something to monitor my health. I mean, it's a risk I'm not willing to take, and no one today should. In the future, this might change, but today it's something I want a doctor and an ECG device. But we do see opportunities, especially when it comes to machine learning or self-learning algorithms. They can improve individualized accuracy of those wearables. We do already see when the first wearables came out, the PPG sensors, they were highly optimized with algorithms on the whole group cohort. And now more and more we see wearable manufacturers working on individualized algorithms. So that means you wear them for a few days and then they tune themselves based on you. And this way they can improve accuracy quite a bit. We also see that, well, one advantage is they're extremely affordable. The Schiller medical device that we used before was with software combined, 12,000 a piece. Now the Garmin watches we currently use in the studies are 200 a piece. And they're extremely comfortable. You wear them on the wrist and you go about your life. The worst thing you have to do is synchronize the damn thing every day. And it means basically open a phone app, sorry. So still, all this allows for trend analysis, making it the ideal candidates and the ideal tools for prevention. And I wouldn't say for treatment today. Later on, this will probably change quite fast. But we see that for prevention and supporting lifestyle changing or lifestyle changes, in which I'm going into a bit further down the road. For this, they could be very helpful. So at Resilient, we realized exactly this. Wearables are not super accurate. However, we combine it with a lot of other data. So we heavily rely on something called data fusion. We're fusing and integrating several data sources with the aim to improve user profile. So we're collecting objective data from wearables, such as sleep, cardiac features, and so on. Then we also collect subjective features. We have a conversational agent for that. So perceived stress, perceived other hassles and states, life hassles and so on. So it asks a lot of questions. There are also standardized questionnaires in there. And then we also collect contextual data. Right now, we showed location and weather. We're going to add more and more with time. And so for us, the bottom line is data fusion will allow us to create personalized user models that aim at reducing stress and provide insights on how we can build coping or how people's individual coping capabilities are. So a bit about large language models. This is just how we decided to use them, especially we already decided to do this before ChatGPT. This was just an amazing fluke for us, actually, that this technology came out. Conversations became much better than the first models we played with. So we started to integrate them just to improve the conversation, mostly. We are collaborating with mental health institutions or experts that use mostly blended therapy to support people, guide them based on data they get. So for that reason, we have memory integration and we integrate the biosignals or what Davide is talking about after, I assume. And we do have explicit questionnaires that will be asked just to validate that we're on the right track, that our solution actually works. So a bit about virtual agents, and here I'm going a bit fast. This is a WooBot. There's an example that came out before ChatGPT. It's quite an established player in depression therapy originally. That was their main goal, to support the broad mass of the back then, I think, Americans first, who had issues with depression and they're too shy to go to see a therapist. So, well, they did beat the control group quite well. Of course, a big part of here, I would argue, is a placebo effect. However, still in 2 weeks, a couple points lower is not bad. We decided to look into it after the clinical experts we're working with decided this is probably the best way for us to communicate with our users. Instead of graphs, we actually explain them and guide them that way. We also saw other studies that WooBot is doing, and they were good at treating substance abuse and anxiety, apparently. So for us, this takeaway is they offer an affordable and scalable solution in combating certain mental health issues. I don't know if I would go for genetic ones, but definitely certain ones. So it's a bit more of a business thing, but privacy is always the first thing people ask me how we're dealing with this, because we're collecting a lot of data and quite private data. So every user enters the standard EULA and user license agreement with the wearable manufacturers, but for us, we don't want the identifying data. We only grab the biometric data, so we don't know who is who. We use a voucher system, and the key to this voucher is with a medical provider, and they're basically our project partner, and they guarantee doctor-patient confidentiality to the individual user. So this way we can, as a company, because it's an external provider, we can guarantee the user's anonymity. So this is a bit how our solution works. We're giving employees a smartwatch, such as right now it's a Garmin's, later it will be other ones like Apple, Samsung, and so on. And we're also handing them a mobile app that includes an AI chatbot coach that can then guide and coach people based on their need or based on when they're asking. So on the other hand, we have the corporate aggregate dashboard where we give, for HR managers, we give them aggregate anonymized statistics that can help them uncover and, if they're good at their job, prevent systemic issues in the company. Thank you for your time and attention.